Welcome to the 2023 Oscar preview show as presented by the Yay, Nay or Meh channel. This is a series of videos where I will be analysing the above the line categories at the 2023 Oscars. Even though I've been podcasting and reviewing films for over a decade now, I still consider myself an enthusiastic amateur rather than an expert. I didn't go to film school, I don't really have the training in it. This is the reason why I only do the major categories, because I honestly don't think I can give a value judgment as to what the best editing is, what the best production design is. But I do believe I can give value judgments about the best acting, the best directing, the best writing, and the best film. So that is why I only do the major categories. And I analyse the Oscars in a slightly different way than most people, because I spend almost as much time discussing what I think should have been nominated rather than what was nominated, and only limiting myself to that. And as such, these videos and in past years audio podcasts do get rather long. So what I've decided to do is split these reviews up into separate videos, and there will be one video for each category, where I will be discussing what I think will win, what I think should win, whether there were any snubs, and if there were any snubs, whether I personally think they should actually have won the Oscar. And in a couple of places I've gone really left field with what I think should win the Oscar. So this is going to be a long process. I mean, at the time of recording, it's less than a week away from the actual Oscar ceremony. So I need to be efficient and I need to be fast. And as such, I'm going to be reusing a lot of the same videos. This introduction I'm recording now will be on each of these videos. I mean, I need to introduce each of the videos in case you come across them individually. So I may as well just record one introduction and use it in each of the videos. And if you watch more than one of these, you'll be seeing this a lot. And as such, there will be a time code in the comments to tell you when the actual content starts. And when I will be talking about the same film in different categories, I'll also be reusing that video as well. So you will be seeing some repeats, but again, you can check in the time codes. And with such a vast project, you need a starting point. In certain categories, there is a shortlist. In both the documentary feature and the international feature categories, the Academy publishes a 15-film long list. And in the animated feature category, they publish a list of eligible films. And this year, there were 27 eligible animated features. But other than those categories with a specific list, the starting point that I use is the lists that are published on goldderby.com, which is basically the industry standard for this kind of Oscar preview and prediction. So if a performance or a film was listed on the Gold Derby lists of Oscar potential, there was a chance, however remote, that a performance or a film did have a chance at the Oscars. And that is the list I will be using, with a couple of tweaks which will come up during some of these videos. So that is my starting point, and if it wasn't published on goldderby.com, it's not going to be under consideration. And this has already gone on for far too long, so let's get on with this categories analysis.
Best Supporting Actor. Nominee.
One of the pleasant surprises that happened on Oscar nomination day is the fact that Brian Tyree Henry managed to get an Oscar nomination in the Best Supporting Actor category for Causeway. At the time, I hadn't seen the film Causeway, but now I have. I fully endorse this choice that the Academy made. There is a tendency in the acting categories for the Academy to recognise and to award the most flamboyant, the most extravagant portrayal on screen. Sometimes it's an award for the most acting, not necessarily the best acting. But Brian Tyree Henry doesn't do that, which makes his nomination all the more remarkable. This is a very, very understated performance, which absolutely works. The film Causeway is about Jennifer Lawrence, who is a military veteran who has a traumatic brain injury. Looks like she's going to be invalided out, although the only thing she wants to do is go back to Afghanistan. She's killing time until she can get the doctors to sign off so she can go back overseas. And whilst killing time, she comes across a local mechanic, Brian Tyree Henry. And there's nothing said between the two of them. They don't have an actual conversation about this. But Brian Tyree Henry very, very quickly realises, oh, there's something off about this girl. She has problems. Maybe she needs help, and she's not going to ask for help, so I'm going to give it to her anyway. And almost accidentally or seemingly, casually, Brian Tyree Henry starts spending more and more time around Jennifer Lawrence, trying to support her in whatever way he can. And this is very much a platonic relationship. I mean, it's made clearly pretty early on that Jennifer Lawrence is into girls. So this is not a romantic or sexual thing until it is. And that's one of the things I don't like about Causeway. But this is a platonic relationship. And Brian Tyree Henry just hangs around. I mean, if you need support, I am here. And it's also very interesting that Brian Tyree Henry has demons of his own. He has a prosthetic leg. And I think one of the things that is going on here is Brian Tyree Henry has the physical scars and he didn't go to war, whereas Jennifer Lawrence looks fine, but she is clearly mentally scarred from what she's seen. She's got a traumatic brain injury. So what things look like and what things actually are is one of the things which is going on here. And Jennifer Lawrence is also really, really good in this film. She was within a whisker of getting an honourable mention for Best Actress from me. But yeah, the film Causeway is pretty good. The one aspect towards the end I didn't like. But the performance of Brian Tyree Henry is very subtle, it's very understated, it's very heartfelt. And it works. I'm really glad that Brian Tyree Henry got this Oscar nomination, and I actually think he deserves it. Causeway would not work if this particular role, was a slight bit off, because you need to get that balance just right between the person fighting his own demons and trying to help somebody else, and having the balance between a platonic friendship and a romantic relationship, even though she says she's into girls. And it's just really good. So yeah, Brian Tyree Henry in Causeway is a yay, and I do think he deserved this Oscar nomination.
Best Supporting Actor. Nominee.
My simple response to Judd Hirsch getting an Oscar nomination is fuck no. Don't get me wrong, I respect Judd Hirsch a great deal. He is a long-standing and often very funny performer on both film and television. My personal connection to him is largely down to his long-standing role on the TV show Numbers, but he does have a previous Oscar nomination to his name. He got nominated in 1981 for Best Supporting Actor for the film Ordinary People, and as such, he holds the record for longest gap between Oscar nominations. But this performance in The Fabelmans? No. I think we have an example here of what I believe will go down in history as the Belfast effect. Last year in the film Belfast, we had a situation where an older, more experienced actress, Judi Dench, got the Best Supporting Actress nomination over what I perceive and what many perceive to be a much, much more worthy performance by Katrina Balfe in the same film. And actually something similar happened in the Best Supporting Actor category last year for Belfast, when Ciarán Hinds got the nod over the younger Jamie Dornan. Although in that case I think that was more of a toss-up. But Judi Dench getting the nod over Katrina Balfe was absolutely baffling. I'm sure you've seen the Oscars, and every year they have a clip when the acting performance comes up to show, this is the acting we are awarding, this is the performance that is Oscar-worthy. And the clip they had to show for Judi Dench was so mundane, so average, that it was almost embarrassing. Katrina Balfe was so much better in Belfast than Judi Dench, in my opinion, and yet Judi Dench got the nod. And the same thing has happened here with Judd Hirsch and Paul Dano in The Fabelmans. The older, more established Judd Hirsch got the nod over Paul Dano. And in my opinion, there's just no comparison. Paul Dano was much better in The Fabelmans. I mean, actually, in my opinion, not so good. He actually deserved an Oscar either. But Paul Dano was more deserving of Judd Hirsch, who was in The Fabelmans for essentially one scene. He comes in, gives mentor advice to the younger Steven Spielberg in the movie, and then buggers off. It's a tiny role. I don't think it's a particularly notable role or a particularly special role. It doesn't stretch Judd Hirsch in any way. And this you're going to give a supporting actor nomination to over Paul Dano, who is more deserving. And even if you wanted almost exactly the same role, there was another better example this year. An older Jewish man who acts as a mentor and points a younger character down the path they're going to go down. That's the role that Judd Hirsch plays in The Fabelmans, and it's also the role that Sir Anthony Hopkins plays in Armageddon Time. And Anthony Hopkins, I also think, is much, much better than Judd Hirsch. For one thing, Anthony Hopkins is actually in Armageddon Time a lot more than Judd Hirsch is for that one scene. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, I'm giving an honourable mention to. I think he was very, very good in a reasonably small role in Armageddon Time. But it's the same role as Judd Hirsch. He is the Jewish grandfather of the young boy in Armageddon Time. He gives sage advice. He points him in the right direction. He has a couple of really powerful and kind of heartbreaking scenes about his experiences, or his parents' experiences in the Holocaust. It's a very, very strong performance from Anthony Hopkins. So even if you wanted the older Jewish mentor character, go for Anthony Hopkins. If you wanted a performance from The Fabelmans, go for Paul Dano. And yet they went for Judd Hirsch. I mean, I repeat, I respect Judd Hirsch. I like him as an actor. But this performance in this film, not Oscar-worthy. For me, Judd Hirsch in The Fabelmans is a nay, and I do not think he deserved this Oscar nomination.
Best Supporting Actor. Nominee.
All throughout the Oscar process, when it came to the Banshees of Inisherin, I was always seeing Colin Farrell leading actor, Brendan Gleeson best supporting actor, and that was pretty consistent. But then more and more I started seeing Barry Keoghan being listed as well. And my initial thought was, really, that performance? When I first saw the Banshees of Inisherin, that never even occurred to me that Barry Keoghan could also be in the mix for best supporting actor. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, actually, Barry Keoghan, that is a good performance. So he has a very flamboyant role, an ostentatious role, which, as I said, it is often a shortcut to getting Oscar nominated. I mean, he is basically the village idiot. I mean, not putting it particularly politely, he is the village idiot. He's a simple soul who speaks without thinking, blurts out anything that crosses his mind, having very awkward conversations with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, having very awkward interactions with Kerry Condon, who he clearly has an unrequited crush on. But he's also somebody who suffered. I mean, he is being horribly abused by his father, who also happens to be the local policeman, so there's bugger all he can do about it, or anybody can really do about it. He does have some ideas of being something more, and given the right circumstances and given the right encouragement, maybe he could actually make something of himself. But he's not being given the right encouragement. I mean, his father is beating him. Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell, his seemingly only friends, are off doing their own thing with the whole, yeah. And Kerry Condon, is polite to him, but that's as far as it will ever go. So he's isolated, and I do think Barry Keoghan plays it well. I mean, like I said, when I watched it, it never occurred to me, but as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, actually, this is a good performance. And Barry Keoghan is somebody I've been a long admirer of. I mean, I first saw him in The Killing of a Sacred Deer, the Yorgos Lanthimos film, and he was so creepy and so disturbing in that. And he's been in other things since. And I've always been impressed with him. And now he can legitimately call himself an Oscar nominee and a BAFTA winner. Which, it is a good performance, but winning the BAFTA over Keoghan Quan and over Brendan Gleeson. How did that happen? I mean, Keoghan Quan has been, the juggernaut. He's won everything except the BAFTA. And honestly, I do think this is a good performance, but I don't think it deserved that win. And it didn't make the cut as one of my personal nominees, but I do understand why it happened, and I do acknowledge that it is an Oscar nomination worthy performance. Just didn't make my personal cut. But Barry Keoghan is a very impressive actor, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought this is a very impressive role in the Banshees of Inisherin. So the role is a yay, but it didn't quite make my cut as one of my personal nominees.
Best Supporting Actor. Snubbed.
I'm on record as saying that Brad Pitt did not deserve his Oscar for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, I had issues with the film itself, but his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I just didn't think was that special, was that notable. This is the film that Brad Pitt is finally going to get an acting Oscar for. I mean, nowadays he's much more likely to get an Oscar as a producer. I mean, he's won an Oscar for Best Picture for 12 Years a Slave and been nominated for Best Picture for both The Big Short and Moneyball through his Plan B production company. But he won his acting Oscar for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which... why? That performance? I mean, what was special? What was challenging about that role? I didn't get it at all. And now we have a situation where Brad Pitt is in a somewhat similar role to his role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in Babylon. And personally speaking, I think he deserves an Oscar nomination much, much more for Babylon than he did for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he didn't get one. His portrayal of this silent movie star who is not only coming towards the end of his career, but also coming towards the end of the silent era, and he's not quite ready to let it go. I mean, he has this idea, this goal that my star shall never fade. I have the charisma, I have the talent to survive the transition. And he just doesn't. And he doesn't quite realise this until it's too late. In scenes which are basically complete rip-offs of Singing in the Rain. I mean, so much of Babylon is directly inspired by Singing in the Rain, which, personally speaking, I didn't have a problem with. But this faded and fading star that Brad Pitt is portraying, I think he does it really, really well, with just the right level of pathos, just the right level of rage, impotent rage at the hand that he has been dealt by history and by the film industry. But he needs to go through the motions anyway. He just needs to do this, because what else is he going to do? And that kind of almost tragic situation that Brad Pitt finds himself in, well, by the end of the film, it is tragic. And that's the one really strong objection I have to the film Babylon, is the place that Brad Pitt's character ends up. I think that goes far too far. But other than that one image at the end, I think Brad Pitt's performance is excellent, and I do think it's Oscar-worthy. So much more Oscar-worthy than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, yet it got nowhere. So, yeah. This is one of those situations that I think they gave the right Oscar for the wrong film. And maybe Babylon should have been the one that Brad Pitt got his Oscar for, acting Oscar for, but no. But in my opinion, in my personal list, Brad Pitt did deserve an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. His performance in Babylon is a yay, and I just really, really did not like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Best Supporting Actor. Snubbed.
Every now and again, you come across a film which seems almost specifically designed for one thing in it to get an Oscar nomination. And it feels to me like The Good Nurse is one of those films. It seems absolutely constructed to get Eddie Redmayne an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. And yet it didn't happen. I mean, he did get Best Supporting Actor at the Screen Actors Guild, the Golden Globes and the BAFTAs, but not the Oscar. And I actually think he deserves it. I mean, yes, it seems very, very calculated, but, I mean, The Good Nurse is an okay film. It is directed by the excellent Danish filmmaker Tobias Lindholm, who has both directed and written some really good films, including the Oscar winner Another Round, which I didn't like. But it's a real-life story about a male nurse who just went around killing people in Pennsylvania and was allowed to get away with it for 8 years, because whenever he was suspected of killing a patient, the hospital in question just moved him on to the next hospital. So he just got shifted from hospital to hospital to hospital to nursing home and killing people along the way. And he got away with it for 8 years because the hospitals just did not want to get sued. So they just kicked the can down to the next hospital, which is horrifying. Until a nurse, played in the film by Jessica Chastain, realised what was going on and actually cooperated with the police and got him arrested. And I mean, this was, a very, very close friend who got him arrested. And Eddie Redmayne plays this role so well. In some ways, it is a slightly cliched role, the cold-blooded killer. But his version of it, his take on it, I found very, very impressive and very, very chilling. This is a person who is not so much an angel of mercy, let us end this suffering. A lot of his victims were just at random. He injected stuff into saline bags. It's like, and it's random who gets it. So he just liked killing. And I mean, as he specifically says in the film, and there's also a documentary on Netflix about this case, and this was released onto Netflix. It was quite a savvy move to actually, a couple of weeks after the fictionalized version came out, Netflix released the documentary. And in both the narrative feature and the documentary, he doesn't know why he did it. He just liked doing it, which is so chilling. And the opening scene of this film is a great demonstration. We see this nurse, Eddie Redmayne, going into the hospital bed, and so in somebody codes, and so unfortunate, but it happens in a hospital. And he calls people in, and they start trying to rescue the person. And we see all of this through the doorway, and Eddie Redmayne is just stood in the corner watching. And it's creepy as fuck. And Eddie Redmayne throughout the course of the film is creepy as fuck. But you understand why he was such a close friend to the Jessica Chastain character, and the bond that they have. You genuinely feel the bond. I mean, in both the narrative feature and the documentary, a romantic sexual relationship is never implied. I think that probably actually happened, but since he's a killer, I don't think the real person is willing to admit that. But I'm pretty sure there was some hanky panky, as well as the obvious and close bond. But the way Eddie Redmayne plays it, the relationship with Jessica Chastain, the way he cold-bloodedly just kills people and feels no remorse, feels nothing about it. It's a standard role, but Eddie Redmayne is such a good actor that he pulls it off, and he pulls it off time and time and time again. And this is another example of just how good an actor Eddie Redmayne is. So I do think, along with those other supporting actor nominations he got, I do believe that Eddie Redmayne also deserved an Oscar nomination as Best Supporting Actor for The Good Nurse. And I do think it is a yay performance. I mean, it's pretty standard, but it's good enough. So I do believe that Eddie Redmayne deserved an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for The Good Nurse.
Best Supporting Actor will win.
If you've watched any of these videos, you will probably realise that I really, really loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. And as I was watching it, I was thinking, Michelle Yeoh, Oscar potential, Stephanie Hsu, Oscar potential, the directing, the writing, Best Picture, all Oscar potential. I honestly wasn't really thinking about Ke-Huy Quan. It was similar to what I was talking about with Barry Keoghan earlier. I started seeing him being listed, and being listed as the favourite for Best Supporting Actor all these times. And initially, I didn't really get it. I mean, yes, I thought that he was good in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but winning the Oscar didn't quite do it for me. But again, I similarly to Barry Keoghan, I started thinking about it, and while Michelle Yeoh and Stephanie Hsu have to do all the crazy stuff around the edges of Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's Ke-Huy Quan who has the arguably much more difficult job of anchoring the film. And he has kind of the most extreme, differing versions of himself that he could be. I mean, the frankly pathetic figure who is married to the Michelle Yeoh we see at the beginning of the film, then the suave time traveller or universe traveller, the tragic romantic figure who's at the film premiere with that version of Michelle Yeoh. I mean, these are very, very different figures, and Ke-Huy Quan manages to pull it off very well. He also manages to have one of the best fight scenes I think I've seen. The fight scene with Ke-Huy Quan and the bum bag, or the fanny pack if you're an American, that's just genius. I mean, that's right up there with the height of Jackie Chan using an unexpected object to use in a fight scene. And that is one of the things that Ke-Huy Quan has been doing over the years, because I think one of the major reasons why Ke-Huy Quan is getting so much attention and is the juggernaut, overwhelming favourite to win this category is the narrative that goes along with him. He became famous as a child actor, performing in both The Goonies and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but found it difficult to break into Hollywood, the very, very racist Hollywood, and to this day I still think Hollywood is far too racist. But as a Chinese American actor, or at least of Chinese heritage, I think he's actually from Malaysia, or his family is from Malaysia, but he is a Chinese heritage actor and found it difficult to break into Hollywood. So he basically gave up acting. He spent a lot of years as a fight choreographer. I mean, he was the assistant fight choreographer / translator whenever Yuen Wo-ping did fight choreography for American movies. And that's basically all he was doing for a while. But then, a couple of years ago, he came back for the Netflix film Finding Ohana. Now, Finding Ohana is a blatant rip-off of The Goonies. I mean, it's really, really not trying to hide at all the fact it is a rip-off of The Goonies. So casting Quan in Finding Ohana was a bit of stunt casting. It was a bit of a nod and a wink to the audience. You know, hey, we're essentially remaking Goonies. Here's Quan. But that, you know, dipped his toe back in the water. And after he appeared in Finding Ohana, he was cast by Daniels in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And now he's going to win an Oscar. I mean, and that narrative of having 30 odd years out of Hollywood and now he's returned, I think that's part of the reason why Quan is going to win this Oscar. Oh, yes, I think he is a very, very good performance. I do believe he deserves a nomination as Best Supporting Actor. He's not going to be my pick. I still have that thing that I initially have when I first saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and as I was watching the film, I just did not see Keoghan as an Oscar potential, whereas other people in the film, I did see Oscar potential in them. So I still have that barrier between me and giving him the actual award, but I do think he's definitely deserving of a nomination, and his performance, me with all the different characters, all the wildly different characters he has to perform, and that one fight scene with the bum bug is just so brilliant. So, yeah, definitely worthy of a nomination, and the performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once is a yay, but he is not going to be my personal choice for the win at the Oscars, even though he is definitely going to win Best Supporting Actor.
Best Supporting Actor should win.
The feel and the tone of the Banshees of Inisherin is very odd, it's very awkward, it's very strange. And this is all down to the statement that Brendan Gleeson makes to his friend Colin Farrell. You are boring, I no longer want to hang out with you. If you do hang out with me, I will do something extreme. And the inability of Colin Farrell to understand this statement and even believe it, really, is the catalyst for this movie. And Brendan Gleeson is so obstinate and so stubborn that he actually follows through with this totally absurd, totally extreme reaction to Colin Farrell still wanting to be his friend. And you're never quite sure why he does it. And yet it's still compelling to watch Brendan Gleeson go through this process. I mean, there's something about legacy, there's something about fatalism. I mean, Brendan Gleeson is a talented musician and he wants to leave something behind him. He wants to, work on his magnum opus. And in his opinion, he can't do that while he's talking bullshit with his friend Colin Farrell in the pub every evening. And yes, there's probably some truth in that, but it's an extreme reaction to try and get away from it. And then you have the Irish Civil War, which is going on the mainland, and periodically you can hear gunfire from the mainland from the Irish Civil War. And there's some talk about Brendan Gleeson having had a son, so maybe that's something to do with it. Maybe this fatalism, arguably even depression, that Brendan Gleeson is projecting has something to do with that. But the fact is that he makes this statement, this absurd, strange statement, and he actually follows through with it. It's an extreme reaction to what's going on. but he does it anyway. And all the while this is going on and things gradually escalate, the back and forth between Brendan Gleeson and Conor Farrell goes on and goes to extreme lengths. All the time this is going on, Brendan Gleeson is so compelling to look at, even though you're not quite sure why he's doing it. You believe he's doing it. And Brendan Gleeson is a fantastic actor. Actually, he was in a film from John Michael McDonagh, Martin McDonagh's brother, called Calvary, which I strongly, strongly recommend. He was brilliant in that. And he's done many, many other things over the years. And now he's an Oscar nominee. And personally speaking, I think Brendan Gleeson should win. I think he is that magnetic, that compelling, even doing this extreme and this strange thing. I buy into it. Honestly, a lot more than I bought into Quan. But yeah, it's unlikely. I mean, Kwan's going to win this category. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He's won pretty much everything else, except the BAFTA. But I think that Brendan Gleeson in The Banshees of Inisherin was a little bit better. And for me, Brendan Gleeson is the person who deserves the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and Brendan Gleeson in The Banshees of Inisherin is a yay. In the Best Supporting Actor category, the actual nominees are Brendan Gleeson for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Judd Hirsch for The Fabelmans, Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin, and Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. My personal list of nominees would be Brendan Gleeson for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Brad Pitt for Babylon, Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Eddie Redmayne for The Good Nurse. Who is going to win this category is Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. It would be a monumental upset if he didn't win the Best Supporting Actor category. But my personal choice would be Brendan Gleeson for The Banshees of Inisherin. And as I leave you with some honourable mentions in this category, which I think are worthy of note, a reminder that I have several more videos in this playlist which analyse different categories at the 2023 Oscars. You can check those out if you desire, even though if you watch enough of them you will have to skip some pieces of footage that I reused, including this closing statement. I am planning to do a reaction video to the Oscars themselves. I haven't quite figured out the technicals of that, but we'll have to see how that goes. And if you appreciate the kinds of things that I'm doing, I have an audio podcast, and I have various other things on this channel that you might want to check out. So you can like, comment, subscribe if you wish. And basically, that's all I have for this particular video. So I'll see you next time, where I shine a light on cinema, both obvious and obscure.